Justin, thanks. 19 minutes past 7 now. And when you get some health advice from the World Health Organization, you'd think it would be thought through properly. It would reflect widespread scientific opinion. Last week, the WHO said governments should restrict e-smoking, those strange-looking devices that steam gently but don't actually give out smoke. The WHO was pretty clear about it. Here's Armando Perugia from their Tobacco-Free Initiative.
E-cigarette is promoted in a way that initiates the use among non-smokers, including ex-smokers and young people. In the past, tobacco industry has been not willing to move smokers to these new products, but rather try to hook non-nicotine dependent people to these new products in order to expand their market. That's something that we need to prevent.
Well, not so fast, say some scientists. In fact, they say the WHO report contained alarmist misinterpretations of the evidence on e-smoking. We're joined by Professor Robert West, who's Director of Tobacco Research at University College London and author of one of the papers published today. It's in the British Journal of General Practice. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Are they dangerous?
Actually, the first thing I want to say is that the WHO, this isn't an attack on the WHO, they're doing a fantastic job. They've secured a worldwide convention on tobacco control, which is saving thousands of lives a year. The issue is really about the information that they're being fed by the scientists, people such as myself, and the importance of making sure that that information is presented accurately and dispassionately.
And they're not doing that?
Well, the problem is that, of course, we all feel very passionate about it, and we know the behaviour of the tobacco industry in the past has been quite appalling, and so that tends to colour one's judgment when one's looking at the evidence. But the evidence is actually quite clear, and there's quite a lot of it at the moment, and that is that the concentration of toxins in the e-cigarette vapour are substantially lower, orders of magnitude lower, in some cases, hundreds of times lower than they are in cigarette smoke. The risk from that vapour is considerably lower. The other thing I think that the guy from the WHO mentioned, which I think is a concern, potentially, is the issue of the gateway. But the report that was critiqued in the paper in Addiction seemed to make out that there was some evidence for a gateway effect, when in fact that's not the case at all. There's very, very few non-smokers who are using e-cigarettes.
Because the WHO seemed to be saying, well, he was saying in terms, it is a gateway. It will lead to people smoking who otherwise haven't, or going back to smoking who'd given it up. You are saying the evidence for that isn't there?
The evidence for that absolutely isn't there. It's actually quite hard to show gateway effects, but one of the things you'd need to do in order to be able to show it is to show that there was at least some use of the gate, which is the e-cigarette. And actually in the countries that have looked at it, and we look at it very carefully in the UK, which has got a very liberal e-cigarette regime at the moment, we're just not seeing usage. So if you're not seeing usage of e-cigarettes, it's very hard to say that usage of e-cigarettes is going to go on to cause
people who do smoke ordinary cigarettes at the moment turn to e-cigarettes. You are saying there are real health benefits?
Oh, without doubt. In fact, I would go so far as to say you kind of have to be a bit crazy to carry on smoking a conventional cigarette when e-cigarettes are available. I think a lot of people, when they think about e-cigarettes or try them, they use the first generation devices that look a bit like cigarettes and don't deliver very much nicotine. But there are lots of other types available which is worth considering.
So, in that case, when it comes to public buildings, what should be done? Because the big question is whether other people are being harmed, isn't it? And we're pretty clear other people are harmed by ordinary cigarette smoke.
Absolutely.
And it's banned right across the board now in most public buildings. With e-cigarettes, what should be done?
Absolutely. And in most countries around the world now, because the evidence is absolutely clear that cigarette smoke is damaging to bystanders. With regard to the vapour from e-cigarettes, the evidence is the concentrations of toxins are just way too low to present a significant health risk. So the issue I think that probably more concerns people is whether it would renormalise smoking. It would undermine the smoke-free laws. And we do have evidence on that, and actually there's no sign of that at all. And when you think about it, it's not that surprising because there's really no difficulty, comparing a cigarette with an e-cigarette. If I light up a cigarette about 10 yards down the corridor, you're all going to know about it very soon. Whereas I could be using an e-cigarette in the same room and you might notice a
But do you think
smell.
you should be able to use an e-cigarette now, for instance, when you're doing this interview, John? It's absolutely extraordinary if someone lit up a cigarette in the studio. You're saying it would be perfectly acceptable and should be acceptable for someone to light, to turn on an e-cigarette.
I wouldn't go so far as to say it's acceptable because that's a big judgment. What I'm saying is that the scientific evidence is that it wouldn't pose a health risk to you. So for whatever reason you might want to stop people doing it, it wouldn't be that.
Professor Robert West, thank you.